Hey there, beautiful people. It's Dina, bringing another daily dose. A few days ago, I shared a video titled, Why God Gave Me a Special Needs Child. And I just shared my story, my journey of why I felt like God gave me a special needs child. And I also mentioned that I have 5 children, but Gracie's my youngest child, and she's the one that has special needs. And she's not more important than my other children at all. I love all my children equally, but it did take something as, I want to say, extreme, because I talk about extreme parenting situations and special needs mom situations. But it took something extreme for God to radically transform my life. And it's not that my other children did not contribute to my transformation or contribute to the quality of my life or any of that. But I knew that they were going to be okay. I knew that even though my husband and I may have made mistakes, and like I said, yes, we did make mistakes, they were going to be okay. They were going to move out, figure things out on their own, have their own families, and eventually go on to whatever it is that God called them to do. As parents, I think we always parent our children. I think there's always going to be a connection that you have to your adult children. And you're going to want to share wisdom with them and be there for them whenever they need you. But most of the time, if you're in a healthy relationship, they're living their own life and you're not intruding on their space. Okay. You just let them be adults. And when you need them or when they need you, then you provide those opportunities. But when it came to Gracie, there was something different about her that I knew I had to get it together because I didn't know the future for her life. It wasn't the same that I could look into her future and say, yes, she's going to be okay. Yes, she's going to be able to have a family of her own and be able to go on and live life independently from us. I'm not saying there aren't Down syndrome people that do that. I've watched many videos where there are people like that are able to live independently and able to live full lives, even go off to college and have careers. But I don't know what God has planned for Gracie, but I know that where I'm at right now in my life with her, she needs 24/7 care. She needs somebody with her all the time. Her developmental abilities are not something that she is able to be independent. And although she's 14, a lot of that, she requires the same amount of care as a toddler or a small child. So when I was struggling with trying to just grasp this whole new life thing when I had her, like I was going to be a mom of a child that's going to need me for the rest of their life, there was a grieving that I had to go through with that. And I do share that very openly and vulnerably on this channel. But one of the reasons why I knew I had to get it together was because I had to be strong enough to be able to do the things that I needed to do to care for her. Now, I know my husband has to do the same thing, but this journey is really about my journey, and he would probably share something differently. I'm sure he has the burden of provision. He's the one that provides for our family. And he has that burden that he's going to have to do for the rest of her life as well. But when it comes to your health, the special needs mom, it's so important that we are strong in our mind, our body. My spiritual health was obviously the most important thing to me. Although I was a Christian and I was serving God, I don't think that my spiritual life was very strong. And I share that. My physical health was definitely not strong. I was so stressed out. I was dealing with a lot of physical problems in my body. My relational health was not strong. Our finances weren't strong, all of that. And I share every bit of that. When I say thriving in all areas of life, I do mean all areas of life. I do mean that we can thrive in all areas of our life, even though we're walking through something that's challenging. Even though God may not remove that difficult situation, He has used that difficult situation so much to transform me into being a better human being, a better mom, a better wife. By taking it away, that wouldn't have been the best thing for me. I might have still been selfish and operating in pride and not seeing things through God's eyes. So it was through the challenges that I was able to really see the things that needed to change in my life. So when it comes to our health as a special needs mom, what I was saying in the beginning of this is that I knew I had to get it together. I knew not only did I have to get my mental state together, because I was, really struggling with depression and, anxiety to the point of where I really just wanted to end my life. And I did not want to hurt anybody or hurt my children or my family. I just couldn't handle the stress or the pain anymore. So at that time, I thought that was my only answer. And obviously that is not the answer. Suicide is never the answer. But I do understand the depths of the pain that somebody feels when they're going through that. But the other thing that was so important for me is to get my health in order. So if I wasn't physically strong or feeling good in my body, then I wasn't able to take care of Gracie. So there was a time where I really went into a deep health journey. And I struggled with some health issues, and I dealt with a mold illness in my body that I had to heal from. And I've had ups and down journeys with my health, and I've shared a lot of that on this channel as well. I'm pretty open about the fact that I've struggled with my weight, and I've struggled with, physical things that are going on in my body. And just recently, I had another one of those situations where I've been pretty complacent and not taking care of myself as much as I should. And I think we go through those stages where we're really diligent about doing that, and other times we're not so diligent about doing that. And so I've kind of been in that, mostly because I'm just tired of always having to be so restrictive or do whatever it takes to keep my body healthy. So there are seasons where obviously we just kind of let that go, and I do share about that, and it is something that I struggle with. I do struggle with my body image and self-image and all of that, but I share this in hopes that it will help somebody else, another mom, understand that you're not alone and that it's a very real thing. But I'm never going to give up trying to be the best version of myself and my body as well. So I had a little scare this past week, and I do understand that God says that there is no fear. So I do know that God is in control of the situation, but sometimes He allows something to wake you up again. So this last week, I've had these migraine headaches, and I've struggled with headaches most of my life. But this particular headache was very different, and it was like this jabbing pain in my back of my skull, like the lower right quadrant of my skull. It was just this constant pain for days that was not being relieved by any kind of medication, and I had to put ice on that. So those thoughts run through my head is like, what's happening here? My father passed away from a stroke, and I was like, is this happening? And so I didn't want to start thinking bad things, and I did what I needed to do to take care of myself, but it didn't put enough of a concern in me, like, okay, it's time to get my body in health again. I don't know what it is. I don't know what was going on. God did relieve the pain of that. There is power in prayer, so thank you for everybody that was praying for me. And I appreciate that. And I did take the time to rest. I also think sometimes God will allow something to happen. And I'm not saying He caused the pain in my head. I'm just saying that sometimes we have to slow down a little bit and rest. And I did do that. After I took care of the daily things that I had to do, I spent the evenings just resting with ice on my head and taking that time to be kind to my body. But I also did some research, and I started understanding that there might be an underlying cause to that. But that being said, it did spark something in me that I originally said, I'm going to take care of my temple because I have to be strong, because I have a child that's going to depend on my ability to be able to handle the care that she needs. And I can't be struggling and striving in any area of my life. So if I'm spending all this time trying to build my spiritual man and my mental health, then I also should be dealing with my physical health. And I was lacking on that. And again, the reason why I share this is because I'm sure there's other people out there that have also gone through that. But I want to encourage you that you can always turn it around. It doesn't matter how many mistakes that you made. When I was taking communion this morning, and I've shared many times that I do that, I try to do that on a daily basis, because the reason I do that is to remind me of the sacrifice that Jesus paid for me. So as I was taking communion, I was grateful and thankful that all the mistakes that I've made by not taking care of my body and not honoring my temple and disrespecting the grace that God showed me in healing my body, I remembered that sacrifice was done for me so that I could be reunited to the Father and Jesus and have Holy Spirit as my guide. And I was disrespecting that. So by taking communion, it reminds me and it keeps me humble that I have to do the best I can to honor what God has given me. So it just helped me to get back on track again. There is no condemnation. There's no shame. There's no guilt. I don't have to feel bad that I let my body go again. But I can no longer play with fire, because although I have struggled with my weight most of my life, I haven't really had a lot of major things happen. I've had health issues that I've had to deal with that come along with carrying around extra weight or whatever that might be. Inflammation, gut issues, had a lot of issues with the mold because I was exposed to toxic mold and I was allergic to that. So it caused a lot of disruption in my digestive system and my brain and all of that I had to heal from. But for the most part, I've been pretty strong. It's only been in these last few years that I've really struggled more with that. I've also struggled with trying to, find the right diet and exercise program that will help that. Obviously, that's a little bit different in my menopausal years here, but I do understand that God is with me in this and that He's not forsaking me and that He is going to give me a plan for that. So if you're one of those people that's kind of struggling through that yourself, He is with you and He is going to give you a plan. But I can no longer just be complacent about it. I do have to remember that I made a commitment and God has called me to be Gracie's mom. And He's called me to be healthy and strong. And I can't just eat food like everybody else does. I can't eat processed food and junk and think that I'm just going to be healthy. So the scare with the excessive headaches that I've had that have not been able to be relieved by any kind of medication scared me enough to know that I probably need to start getting my health back in order again, because I made a commitment to God. I made a commitment to my family. And God has called me to this. And what He's called me to, He's going to give me the strength to do, and He's going to give me all the tools that I need to do. So one of the things as a special needs mom is that you've got to take your health very, very seriously. We cannot be complacent with our health and just eat poorly, because it does. Even if just eating fast food for me affects my mood. I don't know what it is in fast food, but sometimes I get very, very moody. I'm very agitated. I can almost sense it. The very next day, I just have less patience with Gracie. So I don't want to do that either. That's not fair to her. Just because I wanted to have fast food or I didn't feel like eating something that was prepared, that was healthy. So if I made a commitment, then I have to make a commitment and all of that. And this is one of those things it's hard to swallow, because we do want to be able to do whatever we want to do. But if you're a mom out there and you're dealing with an extreme situation, or you have a child that depends on you, we just can't do things the way everybody else can. And I'm not saying everybody else can do those either, because I think there's consequences whether you have a special needs child or not. I think we have one of the sickest countries in the world. There's diagnosis after diagnosis at epidemic levels, and we have an obesity crisis in our country, including myself. So I'm not saying I'm immune to this. I'm not. But it's time for us to get that in health. Especially if you have a child that is depending on you, or you're in an extreme situation, it is so imperative for you to be thriving in your mental state, in your spiritual state, and in your body. And then out of that, I think everything else flows. So I know this went long, and I just pray that this encourages somebody that if you are on that journey, it's okay to start over as many times as you need to, but don't get yourself to a place where it's too late. So this was enough of a scare to me, because when it comes to our head, or when it comes to something that could potentially cause a stroke, I don't want to play around with that anymore. I can no longer feel like I'm this superwoman that I could do whatever I want and it not affect me. Because if something were to happen to me, I don't know who would be Gracie's caregiver. So if you're a special needs mom listening to this, I know that that's one of the biggest burden that we carry. And it's not like my husband couldn't care for her, but he's the provider of our household. So he would have to replace me. And I'm sure my family would all come together, but I don't even want to think that way. I don't want to think that way. I need to get my health in order so that is not an issue. And obviously we have accidents and people die for other reasons than that. But I know that if I can do the best I can to steward my body well, and to steward what God has given me well, then I'm at least doing my part, and then putting the rest of the trust in God on that. So thank you for watching. Thank you for letting me be vulnerable with you. And I just pray that if you are going through something, you're going through a health issue, I just pray abundant health on you, and a reversal of whatever those symptoms are, whatever those things are, and that God has already healed us, and we just need to get into alignment with that. Get our thoughts and our words, as I also say, into alignment with that. So he loves you. He has a plan for you, and it is good. I promise you. And I love you, and I can't wait for us to be back together again. So have an awesome day. Bye.